We are still a couple of weeks away from the NFL draft, so in this video we are going to be doing a 2-round mock draft with trades. Subscribe if you're new, let's hop into it. So as you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator, and we are going to be doing some trades. Now I want to be abundantly clear here when I say we're going to be doing some trades. I don't expect there to be a lot of trades in this year's draft. I just don't think there's enough talent across the board for teams to really move up and give up draft capital to try to go out and get somebody. So unless a player is to fall and there is a very logical trade on the board, I don't know if there'll be too many trades. So with that said, with the first overall pick, I'm going to go ahead and have the Tennessee Titans taking their future franchise quarterback in Cam Ward. They've had a decent offseason where they've addressed certain positions, primarily the left tackle spot. You bring in Cam Ward, he's going to be your franchise quarterback. Will Levis moves to that number 2 role and can compete with Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a very good quarterback prospect. I think he is the prototypical quarterback prospect of the modern era. Big arm, can move around quite well. Just think he's a very fun player that I think would add a lot to the Tennessee Titans here. Moving over to pick number 2, we have the Cleveland Browns, and in this situation, I very well could consider Shedeur Sanders here, because if I am the Cleveland Browns, I'm trying to maximize the potential of this roster. And I gotta be honest with you, I think I am actually gonna go ahead and take Shedeur Sanders here. Now, in an actual real life draft, I would assume that they're gonna take Hunter or Carter, but you just re-signed Myles Garrett. I cannot see this team wasting any more years. This is a Cleveland team that in the past has gone out there and taken quarterbacks with, I don't want to say controversy, but you know, some question marks around them like Baker Mayfield. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Shedeur Sanders here, which then puts the New York Giants in a really tough situation, because obviously both quarterbacks are now off the table here. This is a situation where maybe Russell Wilson is there, maybe Jameis Winston is here. Do I consider Jackson Dart here? Maybe, but I'm not going to take him here. At this certain situation, I'm going to go ahead and just take Travis Hunter, who is my number 1 player in this year's draft class. He'd give you a number 3 option next to Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors. Plus, he can also be a cornerback too. You pair him next to Paulson Adebo and maybe Deontay Banks and Drew Phillips. We'll have to wait and see. I think that's what I'm ultimately going to do here, because you already have Kayvon Thibodeau and you already have Brian Burns. So we're going to go and take Travis Hunter here and give this Giants team a really nice piece to add to both the offense and the defense. Next, you have the New England Patriots, and unfortunately Travis Hunter's no longer on the board here. So I actually think this is a trade down spot here. Now, the reason why I think this is a trade down spot is because they've kind of addressed an edge rusher, even though obviously Abdul Carter is obviously a total superstar, and if I was the Patriots, I'd probably just take him here. But this team really needs to add to the offensive side of the football with either Tetairoa McMillan or Will Campbell. So I think I can maybe trade down here, maybe just one spot to the Jaguars, or maybe even drop down a few spots to the team like the Panthers and let them go ahead and take the edge rusher in Abdul Carter, and then we go ahead and address our offense in somebody like a Will Campbell. I know there might be some Patriots fans who are a little frustrated with that, even though I really think they should really address the offensive side of things. I can see Patriots fans not really liking that, so I think I'm talking myself back into it. We'll take Abdul Carter here, why not? Again, I would have loved to have taken an offensive player there, but man, you have Abdul Carter just fall right into your lap. I don't think you just let him go and pass him up. I think he's one of the few blue chip prospects left, so yeah, I had to kind of talk myself back into that one. At number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think I'm still going to go ahead and just stick with Mason Graham. I know it's sort of the boring pick, and I've seen some mock drafts like Daniel Jeremiah mocked them, Jalen Walker. I could easily do that, but in this situation, I think I'm just going to stick with Mason Graham here. He's just such a really nice prospect, and this would really finish up their defensive line. I would consider Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron here, but I think Mason Graham is clearly the best prospect on the board, so I'm going to go ahead and take Mason Graham here. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is a situation where a lot of people will tend to take Ashton Jeanty, and I believe in my last mock draft, I actually did take Ashton Jeanty, so we're going to go ahead and switch it up here and take Tetairoa McMillan. He's going to be our true wide receiver 1, and yes, we'll probably take a running back in round 2, so we'll go ahead and just take Tet McMillan to kind of switch things up. Big, rangy, long, physical receiver, can do a lot of work after the catch, really good catch radius. I mean, this is somebody who I think has the ability to be that number 1 option. Jets are on the board here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and take Armand Membu here to finish off this offensive line. He's probably going to stick to right tackle. Olu Fashanu at left tackle. You have your solid interior O-line, and then Armand Membu really finishes that spot out there. I think that he is a really good tackle prospect who is flying up draft boards because of his combine performance and basically everything he's done this offseason. So we're going to go and take Armand Membu because I think he'll stick out better as a right tackle. Then you have Carolina at pick 8, and this is really a tough spot for them to be in, but there are a few players I would consider here. Will Johnson's on the board. Jalen Walker's on the board down here as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and just take Jalen Walker because he has the potential to be both an edge rusher and an off-ball linebacker, which are 2 positions of needs for this Panthers team. I could have taken Will Johnson, but I'm going to go ahead and just stick with Jalen Walker here. I've made that pick a few times, and the more more I take it, the more I end up liking the pick, because this is a Panthers team that just could really use some really talented players, both in the linebacking core and in the edge rushing room. So I think Jalen Walker kind of satisfies both those needs. At number 9, we have the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to go ahead and take a player who is flying up draft boards as well because of his overall size and what he potentially could become in Shamar Stewart. Yes, I know the Saints have kind of addressed their defensive line in some ways by bringing back Chase Young and kind of making sure he stays in the building, but I think Shamar Stewart can play opposite of him. This is a Saints team that loves big physical edge rushers, and I just think it makes a lot of sense for the New Orleans Saints to just kind of stick in here, take their guy, and just go with it. Pick 10, you have the Chicago Bears, and I'm not going to think too hard about it. Yes, Will Campbell's on the board, but I'm just going to go ahead and take Ashton Jeanty. To me, this pick makes a lot of sense. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I feel confident that I have built up my offensive line. Maybe we go left tackle in the second round, but man, if you can get a guy like Jeanty on your roster, I don't think you think too hard about it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and have a trade here. The San Francisco 49ers, who easily could go Will Campbell, I think they need to acquire assets to just kind of fill in as many spots as they physically can. And I think there's a team in the Miami Dolphins who have to address the interior of their offensive line. And I think that they would have a situation here where they would want to take Will Campbell. And again, San Francisco's in a spot where they can take a really good player in this 13th pick while also acquiring even more draft capital. Because it's only a from pick to 11 to pick 13, I don't think it would cost too much. Maybe like a 116. I'll go 98 for the sake of the argument. So the Dolphins will give up 13 and 98 to move up to 11. The San Francisco 49ers give up 11 to get 13 and 98. Go ahead and get this done here. Miami takes this pick here, and they're going to go ahead and take their future, either tackle or guard, wherever they view him as, in Will Campbell. I think he was a great fit for this team. He's a good mover, strong, physical, can run. I like this fit quite nicely for the Dolphins. Next is the Dallas Cowboys, who have a number of questions to answer on this team, as a big question being who's going to play opposite of CeeDee Lamb. No McMillan on the board, but I see somebody in Matthew Golden who is probably the best outside receiver available in this kind of group of receivers. Luther Burden, probably more of a slot guy. Emeka Egbuka, probably more of a slot guy. Golden can play on the slot, but he can also play on the outside. Really surefire hands, great route runner, good speed. Doesn't have the greatest size like a McMillan, but I think that's totally fine. You pair him next to CeeDee Lamb, it makes a ton of sense. Other players I would consider here would be Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron, who I would love to see in a Cowboy uniform, but ultimately I think this team has to address the receiving core and add more weapons for Dak Prescott. So we're going to go ahead and take Matthew Golden here. And there goes San Francisco, who's going to go ahead and just take Will Johnson to be their future cornerback one. You get rid of Charvarius Ward in free agency. You move off of Talanoa Hufanga. That secondary is looking pretty suspect. Yes, you got Renardo Green, but you want to add talent around him. You move back 2 spots, you acquire capital, and you end up getting maybe the best cornerback in this draft class in Will Johnson. So I think 49ers fans will be pretty happy about that one. All right, the Colts are on the board. Don't overthink it. They're taking Tyler Warren. It just makes so much sense. They need a threat in the tight end room who can do a lot of different things. They need identity. Tyler Warren could be that identity maker at the tight end position. So I'm sorry, Colts fans. It is like every single mock draft is Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, but it just makes so much sense. So we'll take it there. All right, the Atlanta Falcons are on the board here, and I could take Jahdae Barron to pair next to what they have in that secondary, but man, I think I need to probably address the edge rushing room as much as it kind of pains me to say it. I'm going to take Mike Green. If we assume the off the field issues kind of work their way out here, I could really see Atlanta being interested in a guy who I think has a very high pass rushing ceiling. This defense needs more pass rushers, and I think Mike Green, if the off the field stuff is okay, would be a great fit there. All right, the Arizona Cardinals are up at pick 16, and man, I think Jahdae Barron is such a good player that I would love to add him here, but Kenneth Grant also makes a lot of sense. So does Jahad Campbell, but this team has taken linebackers in the past. You know what? I think this team would like to have a guy like Jahdae Barron. I know they have some young secondary members that are playing really well, but I think if you could add even more young energy into it, you kind of address your defensive line with Josh Sweat. Yes, the interior needs some work, but man, I think you can find one in the second round. So if I am the Cardinals, I'm going to go ahead and just stick right here and take Jahdae Barron and just feel really confident about my future secondary. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the board here. They have pick 17, and they also have a number of needs on the defensive side of the football. I'm going to go ahead and stick right here and just go ahead and take Jahad Campbell. He can play both an off-ball linebacking role, and he can play an edge rushing role if you want him to. Somebody who I think on first, second down should play off-ball, and then maybe on third downs, if you want to put some pressure on a quarterback, maybe you move Jahad Campbell into that sort of role. Former 5-star edge rusher coming out of college, went to Alabama, stuck inside as an off-ball linebacker, linebacker, but did show some flashes as a true edge rusher. So if I am the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm getting a versatile guy who can just play every single down and give you so much productivity. This is a defense that could use a number of things, so Jihad Campbell kind of fixes a bit of both. All right, Seattle is on the board here, and man, Malachi Starks is available, but I think I have to address the offensive line. You've done so much work to kind of shore up this receiving core with Cooper Kupp, and you want to promote JSN to a bigger role, and I just can't go into this draft without taking an offensive lineman, so I'm going to go ahead and take Kelvin Banks, who I think is going to likely stick out at tackle, but I think could maybe move inside to play guard if need be. So yeah, if you're Seattle, you just have to address the offensive line, and I think Kelvin Banks is a great player who's getting a little bit of some prospect fatigue right now, so I'm not going to overthink it. Tampa Bay is on the board here. There's been a lot of rumors about Shamar Stewart. If he falls, he might end up being the pick here, but unfortunately he is not available here. So I'm going to go ahead and just probably take Donovan Ezaraku, or no, sorry, I'm going to take Micah Williams here. Donovan Ezaraku is really close to being the pick here, but I think Tampa Bay is a team that likes to maybe have, well, you know what, maybe more of like an off-ball linebacker role. I think Micah is more of a true edge, but if you want like an off-ball linebacker, can play with his hands free, loose, it's very fast. You're not really going to need him on rundowns because you already have Vita Vea and you already have a couple other guys there. Actually, I'm going to go with Donovan Ezaraku here. I think Michael has a higher ceiling, but as a pass rusher, I think Donovan clearly has the better pass rush presence to him right now. So we'll go ahead and take that. All right, Denver is here, and I'm going to have them probably taking, well, actually, no, they took Evan Ingram in free agency. So we're going to have them taking Luther Burden. You have your running back, or actually, no, cut that. We're going to take Amarion Hampton here to be their future running back. You lose out on Javonte Williams. He's gone now to the Cowboys. You don't really have a go-to running back option right now. This is a Denver team that, with Bo Nix running the quarterback position, you have Cortland Sutton, even though I think you need another receiver in this team. Amarion Hampton could be that change of pace guy, really help in the play action game. I think he's a solid running back, definitely worthy of a top 20 pick. So I'm going to go ahead and take him there. All right, Pittsburgh is on the board here. I probably could take Jackson Dart, but I am not going to do that. You lose out on Najee Harris, so you're promoting Jalen Warren to a pretty big role on this roster. You address some of your major issues, but I think you're in a situation now where maybe you go ahead and take running back. I know that Jackson Dart is here, and I probably should end up taking him, but I can't fathom taking a quarterback like Jackson Dart at pick 21. I mean, PFF has him ranked 126. If I had to give you my big board, he would be like top 80, but I'm not taking a top 80 prospect pick 21. I just think that's a little ridiculous. I could go Malachi Starks here. And you know what? I think I will take Malachi Starks because he can play safety, nickel. I even think if you need him to, he can play corner here and there. I mean, he can play all over the field. Very versatile piece. My other option is Quinshot Judkins, but I think I can maybe wait to get like a RJ Harvey late in the second round, or Caleb Johnson if he somehow falls, or Dylan Sampson. So we'll take Malachi Starks. The talent is here. I know Jackson Dart, but come on, guys, let's be real. All right, the LA Chargers are here, and they've done a couple of things this free agency, but it's been a little bit more quiet than I really thought it was going to be. Unfortunately, there really isn't a top two physical wide receiver you could pair next to McConkey and Quentin Johnston. So I think I'm not going to overthink this one and just take Colston Loveland. He is a really good tight end prospect, a really good receiving tight end prospect, and that's kind of what this Chargers team could really use. You have McConkey, you have Johnston, you add Colston Loveland, you give Herbert more weapons to work with. Yes, the edge rushing room is important, but I think Loveland is maybe a more surefire prospect than like a James Pierce Jr. All right, Green Bay is on the board here, and I am looking at either cornerback, depending on what happens with Jair Alexander, or I'm going to take an edge rusher, and I think that is what I'm ultimately going to do here with Micah Williams. Micah Williams is somebody who I think instantly steps in day one and is a really good run stuffer, but I think has a high upside too, to where I think he could be a decent pass rusher in the future too. So for Green Bay, you have Rashawn Gary. You hope that Lucas Van Ness can take the step forward, but if not, you got Micah Williams going to fill that role, and then Van Ness kind of fills in more of a depth option. All right, the Minnesota Vikings have been really aggressive this offseason, picking up a lot of pieces. You bring back Aaron Jones, you add to your interior the defensive line, you add to your offensive line. So your secondary lost a few pieces, and when you look at their secondary here, you brought back Byron Murphy, you brought in Isaiah Rodgers, but then that second cornerback's a bit of a question mark. Harrison Smith comes back, Theo Jackson, you got a couple guys there and here and there. So I think I'm looking at secondary, and if I'm looking at who I want to add, I could potentially add Nicky Monwari, who I think could be a really solid, strong safety who has a lot of versatility to play multiple roles on this team. But I think outside corner might be a little bit more of a bigger need here. I know that Flores really likes to have versatile guys who can do multiple things, and if you want that, maybe Nicky Monwari fits the mold a bit better. But I think, all right, the Houston Texans are on the board. They need offensive line help. Let's not overthink it too much here. I'm going to go ahead and just take Ray Zabel wherever he is at. He's listed as a tackle, but probably going to play guard. You could go Josh Simmons, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess the question between Josh Simmons and Gray Zabel is, do you think that Josh Simmons can come back from that injury and instantly be a contributor? It's a Texans team that needs a versatile piece. I think Gray Zabel offers more versatility, and I feel a little bit more confident that he can step in day one and be an instant contributor, whereas Josh Simmons, I'm a little bit worried about that injury, especially because he does rely on athleticism. So we'll take Gray Zabel to kind of fill out the offensive line a bit. All right, the LA Rams are here, and they're also in need of some secondary help. They've really addressed a lot of their issues, bringing back Alaric Jackson, bringing in Devontae Adams. Their defensive line is just nasty. You just need to fix up that secondary, and here you are with pick 26, and you can take Maxwell Hairston or Azariah Thomas or maybe even Darian Porter. I think I'm going to take Maxwell Hairston because of how good his combine was. Fast mover, good ball instincts. Like, this guy can really track the ball quite well, can create some turnovers. Is he worthy of a first-round pick? Maybe not, but again, I think teams might reach a little bit on corner because of the need here towards the back end of the first round. All right, I think this is where James Pierce Jr. probably stops his drop. Again, I've only had one trade so far, and I don't really think that any of these teams need to really make a trade, so maybe there might be some more second round trades, but right now I just think the draft is really smooth sailing, so there's really no need for it. Detroit is on the board here. You lose Kevin Zeitler, so that's a big loss, but I don't really know if there's anybody. Maybe I could take Tyler Booker to maybe potentially fill in at that guard role, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't really think that's that big of a need. Amon-Ra St. Brown plays a bit more in the slot, so you don't really need a Luther Burden. Same with like an Emeka Egbuka. I could go with another edge rusher and like a Nick Scourton, or maybe I go with an interior defensive lineman like a Derek Harmon to just continue the trend of getting disruptors on the defensive line. Kind of a weird one here, but I think I am going to go ahead and just take Tyler Booker. Big, physical, nasty, kind of fits what Detroit wants to get in terms of an identity player. So we'll take Tyler Booker here to just continue the trend of nasty physical linemen. All right, Washington is here at pick 29, and I'm going to take Luther Burden. He falls basically right into your laps. You have Deebo Samuel, who's a versatile piece, probably a bit more of a gadget guy now. Terry McLaurin is your outside receiver, and then Luther Burden plays primarily within the slot, but also can fill in outside. Just think it's kind of best case scenario for that offense. Just continue to build around Jaden Daniels. All right, Buffalo's here at pick 30. I know you picked up Larry Ogunjobi, or I think that's how you say his name. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but he is suspended for 6 games. And when you got a guy like Kenneth Grant on the board here, I just don't think you overthink it. You could also go with Walter Nolan, but there's less concerns about Kenneth Grant and what he can become, more so than like Walter Nolan. Then you have the Chiefs here, who have addressed the offensive line with Jalen Moore, but I don't think that you stop there. I think Josh Simmons is also here, and you just go ahead and take him, and you figure out how to fix up this offensive line. Who plays guard? Who plays tackle? Does Jalen Moore start? Can he start? If not, go ahead and fill out with Josh Simmons, who can be a young developmental piece who adds a lot to this offensive line, because you lose Joe Thuney, your left tackle player, or your left tackle spot sucks, and you're paying Trey Smith a lot of money, so you need some younger pieces to kind of fill in and rework that offensive line. And then there's Philadelphia on the board here, and they've lost quite a bit in free agency, and I think the biggest spot where they took a bit of a hit at was the interior of the defensive line. Losing Milton Williams was a big loss. Losing Josh Sweat. Unfortunately, there isn't really a pass rusher who I'm like in love with. I could go Nicky Monwari. I think could fill in a nice role here, playing more of a strong safety who can also go inside the box. Maybe you move around Cooper DeJean a bit more. You could play a bit more safety, nickel. You can even play outside corner a bit more. I know there's a bigger need maybe at defensive line, but you have Jordan Davis, you have Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith fills in a bigger role. You just brought in Aziz Ojolari, so I think I'll take Nicky Monwari here to just kind of have him be a versatile piece. I did that in my last mock draft, and I really did like it, so I think we'll double down here and take him again here. All right, Cleveland is here, and last time they took the quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, so I think this time you surround him with as much talent as possible by giving him a future running back in Quinshad Judkins. I could go Caleb Johnson, but I think Judkins is moving up draft boards, and rightfully so we'll take Quinshad Judkins to give Shedeur Sanders some help in that backfield. All right, well, things actually worked out quite nicely here for the New York Giants. You go ahead and take Travis Hunter with your with the 3rd overall pick. You lose out on both quarterbacks in this class, but you end up with Jackson Dart in the 2nd round. So it kind of did end up working out here for the New York Giants. Again, I don't think that he's worthy of this pick. Like, I don't think Jackson Dart, I'm sorry, I could be wrong. I hope I am wrong, but I don't think he's worthy of really like a top 40 pick. So it's a little bit of a reach here, but again, quarterbacks are at a premium. So I guess I just have to take him here. Tennessee took Cam Ward last time. I think this time maybe you want to find an edge rusher because you lose out on Abdul Carter. So maybe you want to go with a more surefire edge rushing prospect. Princely Uma, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this guy's last name, but 6'4", 255, a lot of good productivity. Nick Scourton, good size. Could go with JT Tuimala if you want more productivity as well. I know Emeka Egbuka's here, but you have Calvin Ridley who can kind of work inside the slot a little bit. But maybe you want to surround Cam Ward with as much talent as possible, and maybe you feel okay about your defense right now. So we'll actually go ahead and just take Emeka Egbuka here and not overthink this one. All right, so Jacksonville's on the board here. They went ahead and took Mason Graham last time. I think this time maybe you want to look a bit more around the receiving core to give Trevor Lawrence some more options on the outside. Of course, you have Brian Thomas Jr. I think I might take Jack Betch here because he's somebody who I think can play on the slot, can play on the outside. Not going to woe you with any athleticism or size feature to him, but just really reliable, really consistent. I would prefer Jack Betch over a lot of these different guys. I love Jaden Higgins too, by the way, but I just think Jack Betch gives this offense a different feel that they just don't have right now. So we'll take Jack Betch here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, the Raiders are on the board here. Last time they took Tetairoa McMillan. I think this time we double down on offense and surround Geno Smith with as many playmakers as possible. So we're going to go ahead and just take, I want Dylan Sampson or Caleb Johnson. I know Cam Scatterbo's here, but I think he's better suited as a number 2 option more so than a number 1 option. If I go Dylan Sampson, I think I need to pair him with a Caleb Johnson-like guy, or maybe somebody like a Scatterbo, arguably. So we'll take Caleb Johnson to be a bit more physical, bruisey style guy, but also has really solid speed, good footwork, good contact balance. We'll take Caleb Johnson there. 38, they took in the last pick Abdul Carter here. So 38, I'm going to have the New England Patriots looking to add something to the receiving core here. I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins because he's looked really good so far this offseason, making a lot of plays. Good size, good frame, 6'4", 215, more of a possession receiver. So we'll take Jaden Higgins here to add to this receiving core. All right, Chicago's on the board here, and there are some really good interior defensive linemen. So I'm just going to go ahead and take Derek Harmon. I know they have some pieces there, but man, if you can just get a surefire guy like that, I don't think you overthink it. We took Shamar Stewart last time for the Saints, and I mean, I think I might double down on defensive line here and take another one of these interior defensive linemen. I mean, Walter Nolan's on the board here, Darius Alexander's on the board. I mean, that's a huge need for them. So we'll go ahead and we'll take Darius Alexander here. Really add a nice fun piece to that defensive line. All right, I think this is another trade spot here because I'm looking at a team like Dallas who could really use a Walter Nolan-like guy, and I think this would be a good spot to potentially make a trade here. So we'll do 44, 41. It wouldn't cost them too much. Maybe just 171. So yeah, we'll go 44 and 171 to move up 3 spots to get pick 40. We'll throw in like, I don't know, 239 or something like that. So 3 picks for 1. You move up a couple spots. Maybe I just push this back to like 174 or something like that. So we'll get this done here. Dallas moves up on the board here to get Walter Nolan to add a fun, nice piece to the interior of the defensive line. Unless you trust Mozzie Smith to play a lot of snaps next year, you have Osa Digizua, you add him with Walter Nolan. I think it makes a lot of sense here. You also overcut this Jets team that probably would have taken a Walter Nolan there to pair next to Quinnen Williams. Now they're in a situation where they took Armand Membu. I think this time maybe you look at a receiver here. I think I might take Alec Ayamanor. Really good size, 6'2", 210, very smart player, can get up and win some 50-50 balls. You pair him next to Garrett Wilson. I think it makes a lot of sense to add that to your offense. All right, San Francisco took Will Johnson last time, so they had a huge pickup there. And I think now I'm looking at offensive line, and I'm looking at Josh Connerly or Donovan Jackson. Connerly might be a bit more of a tackle prospect, but Donovan Jackson has some flexibility. I think I'll take Connerly, but I definitely would consider Donovan Jackson there. All right, so the Chicago Bears are on the board here. They dropped back a few spots to move down from the Dallas Cowboys. They took Genty, they took Derek Harmon. I think maybe you look at adding a guy like Xavier Watts to your team. Maybe you look at tackle and go with Donovan Jackson. I guess if Connerly was available, I would have taken him there, but he isn't. Donovan Jackson, I think, is a bit more of a guard. They kind of fix those big needs. So we'll take Xavier Watts to add to the safety room. I don't think it's the biggest need, but I mean, they kind of killed the offseason, so they don't really have too many big issues now. I mean, maybe I go Nick Scourton. I could go a pass rusher too. Scourton, Swinson, Landon Jackson, JT Tuimala. I could go there, but Xavier Watts is a hell of a player. Could really make this secondary look that much better. I think maybe I should go edge rusher, but you took Derek Harmon's, so I think I'm just going to say screw and take Xavier Watts here. All right, the Colts had a really interesting offseason where they fixed up some of their issues in the secondary, but they also lost a lot of pieces on their offensive line. And with somebody like Donovan Jackson here who can play multiple roles, I'm just going to go ahead and take him to likely move inside and play guard there. Atlanta now is on the board here. Last time they took Mike Green. I think this time I look at adding a cornerback here to pair opposite of AJ Terrell. well. I'll go Azariah Thomas. He's one of my favorite corners in this year's draft. I think he's a really good, long, wiry guy. Create some turnovers, make some plays. I think he's a good fit next to AJ Terrell. All right, the Arizona Cardinals took Jahdae Barron last time, so I think this time I'm looking at interior defensive line. You took Josh Sweat. I think I'll just pair him up with a guy like TJ Sanders here. Miami's on the board here. Tyleik Williams is on the board. They need some help in both offensive lines, both interior offensive and defensive lines, so we'll take Tyleik Williams here. Bengals took Jahad Campbell last time. You bring back T. Higgins. You bring back Jamar Chase on a long-term deal. Joe Burrow got paid. I think maybe you look to add maybe a safety here. Andrew Makuba, Sebastian Castro. Not really feeling these guys. If Xavier Watts was on the board, I'd probably take him. I think I might go corner here. There's some good cornerbacks still on the board here. Siobhan Rebel's a really good athlete, but had an injury that's kind of concerning. Porter has a weird come up, whereas last year was really good, also a very good athlete, but you just kind of wonder why it took him so long to get on the field. And then Morrison has a hip issue, which, I mean, seemingly isn't going that great. So I don't love these prospects, but I think I'll take Siobhan Rebel here for the upside. He's a great athlete, so we'll take him here for the Bengals. All right, the Seahawks have 2 of the next 3 picks. They need help on the offensive line as much as they physically can get. You took Kelvin Banks. I think maybe you double down here and take another offensive lineman to pair next to Banks, potentially to play center or guard, maybe even fill him out at tackle as like a swing tackle option. I could also go receiver too. I don't want to just think with one thought only. Restrepo is more of a slot. I don't know if Noel's the guy. Royals either. Savion Williams is pretty interesting. Might be a little bit of a reach here at pick 50, but can play more of that outside receiver role. 6'5", 225. This is interesting. I have 2 of the next 3 picks, so I guess we can sort of say screw it here. We could also go Nick Scourton too, but you bring in DeMarcus Lawrence, so I don't really know if that's the biggest need now. Yeah, I think I'll take an offensive lineman here. I'll probably take Marcus Mbao can play guard. Ariante Ursary can play guard. I think I'll take Marcus Mbao. Actually, no, I'll take Ariante Ursary because I think he can play tackle or guard. Denver took Amarian Hampton last time. This time you take a receiver. I think Trey Harris could be a fun fit who can play a bit more on the outside. But maybe you want to go with a more surefire guy like a Jalen Royals or Jalen Newell. You could go into the defensive line too, like an Alfred Collins if you really want to go that far. But I think I'll take a receiver here, and I think I will take Trey Harris. I don't know. Xavier Restrepo is interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of Restrepo, to be honest with you, but he could fill in a bit of a need there. I just kind of think he isn't really the difference maker this team really needs. So I'll take Trey Harris, who I think can become that difference maker. And then for Seattle, we took 2 offensive linemen. I think now we get a receiver to pair next to JSN and Cooper Kupp. The size element of Savion Williams is really interesting. You have to account for him because of how athletic he is for his size. So we'll take Savion here. All right, the Buccaneers added Donovan Ezuraku last time. I think this time maybe I add a linebacker to be the future replacement for Levante David, who I think is on his last year. We could go Demetrius Knight, but I think he's like 25, which is concerning. I know age isn't that big of an issue for prospects because you want a surefire guy who can help you now, but I don't know if 25 feels just a little bit too, I want to say he's 25. Don't quote me on that, but I know he's pretty old at this point. Carson Schwessinger is also here. I think I might just take Demetrius Knight. I know he's a little bit older, but this is a Buccaneers team that's trying to win now, so you need as many win now pieces as possible, so we'll take Demetrius Knight here. All right, Green Bay's on the board. Last time they took Michael Williams. I think this time you try to find a cornerback to pair next to maybe Jair Alexander or maybe to replace Jair Alexander. I could go Darian Porter, but I don't know if he's really the CB1 this team might be looking for. Morrison has more of that vibe to him if he can just come back from this injury 1000%. But this is also a Packers team that needs to win now, and I just don't know if I can take a risky pick like Benjamin Morrison. I guess both these players are both a little bit risky because Porter, there's the question mark of, well, why didn't he play till this year? And then Benjamin's the question of, is he okay? I guess we'll bank on the athleticism of Darian Porter and bank on that 1 year of tape and just hope that maybe it was a miscalculation by whoever he was on prior to this year. So we'll take Darian Porter here. All right, the LA Chargers last time took Colston Loveland. I think they might need to add some help in the defensive line. Obviously, you brought back Khalil Mack. You have Tui Pelotu. I think you need to add some more juice next to him. And I'm looking at Braden Swinson as potentially being that guy. We can also look at Princely, 6'4", 255. More a finesse guy. I think I might go Nick Scourton, though. He feels a bit more like the size of what they typically look to give. 6'4", 285. I think he weighed in a little bit less than that. So we'll take Nick Scourton here. All right, the Buffalo Bills are on the board here. They need to get as much pressure on the quarterback as they physically can. And, well, you lose Von Miller. You replace him with a guy like Princely or Braden Swinson. I'm a little bit higher on Swinson myself. 6'4", 250. So I think I'm going to take Braden Swinson here. All right, Carolina's on the board here. They have been pretty aggressive so far this free agency, really in acquiring as many good, talented players they can. I just drafted Jalen Walker here. I mean, I could go receiver, but there really isn't a receiver on the board who I'm like in love with. Sorry, I picked quarterback. I meant pick receiver. There just isn't anybody who I think could be that true difference maker, like a true outside winner. I mean, maybe you look to find a replacement for Adam Thielen, but I'm just not feeling it with these guys right now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with the defensive line and add Princely, who I think does give them a pass rushing element that they could really use. All right, Houston took Gray Zabel last time. I think this time maybe you look to add a receiver because there's some big time question marks with this receiving core moving forward. I know that I said there's no big difference makers, but I think this is a team in Houston that wants to win. They feel like their defense can win now. Your offensive line is really weak, but you did take Gray Zabel, who kind of addresses a lot of different needs wherever you need him to. You don't know what's going on with Tank Dell. Xavier Restrepo, more of a slot guy. 1,100 yards this year, 1,100 yards last year. 5'10", 198. Man, I don't know. I'm not the highest in Restrepo. I just am not. But I think for a team like Houston who could just use a reliable weapon while Tank Dell's gone, I guess we'll take Restrepo here. All right, the Ravens are on the clock. Last time they took James Pierce Jr., which is a really good pick for them. I think this time maybe you look to find something in the interior of their offensive line. Obviously, you lose out on Patrick McCarry. So I think you're trying to replace him with either Mbao or Savania. I think I'll take Mbao because I think he might be a better fit at guard. Tyler Booker was the last pick for the Detroit Lions. I think you want to add some edge rushing units, and I think JT Tuimoloau could very well be that guy. Good productivity. Last year had like 15 sacks, so yeah, good productivity. Kind of fits the mold of, just biting your ankles off, being a big, physical, strong athlete. So we'll take JT here. Washington took the receiver last time in Luther Burden. I think this time maybe you look to find a running back to pair next to what you already have in Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. I mean, Trevion Henderson's here, so I think I'll take Trevion. He's just a home run hitter who can really add a lot to this offense. Buffalo has went defensive line on both picks, and I'm kind of considering going at it again, but I do think cornerback is a bit of a need. We'll take Benjamin Morrison just off the fact that I think he has the talent and potential there. It just comes down to really that injury. All right, Kansas City is on the board. I think they just take best player available on the defensive line. Shamar Turner, Alfred Collins both make some sense. I think I'll take Alfred Collins here because I just think he's maybe a bit more surefire hit than Shamar Turner, although I have heard that teams love Shamar Turner, but I'll take Alfred Collins. And the last pick here is the Philadelphia Eagles. Last time they took Nick Emonwori. I think this time, a lot of different ways we can go here. This is a team that just consistently always gets home run hits. I think you need to find a replacement for what you lost on this defensive line. Maybe I go Jack Sawyer. I could go Jared Ivey, who's a big physical guy. Omar Norman Lott, actually, I think could very well be my pick here. 6'3", 315. Didn't get a lot of playing time, but man, 18.9% pass rush win rates. I mean, if you want your replacement for Milton Williams, Omar Norman Lott could easily be that guy. All right, so this is a recap of the first round. Let me know in the comment section below what you agree with, what you disagree with. Hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.